Welcome on in, football fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and prop preview for Week 12 of the NFL season. Gonna make sure you're ready for all of your Draftkings lineups. With first off, my top 3 QB stacks of the week. They go out there, get some leverage in those GPPs, and then afterwards, gonna be focusing on the prop side of things with our top props there on Underdog and Prize Picks. By the end of the video, you'll have all the details you need to go out there, get after your exposure for tomorrow, and hopefully make Sunday one to remember. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right on in with first off the top 3 stacks over there on the DFS side. Stack number 1 is going to come from the highest total of the week, which comes in that Lions versus Colts game, over a 50-point implied total between those two teams, which means there could be a whole lot of scoring between this affair, and one that you might want to center some of your DFS exposure on. Specifically, I'll have a lot of Jared Goff stacks, as last week you saw that pay off. Of course, we took advantage of that over here on the channel, but now against this Colts team, which on paper is a little bit of a better defense against the run, Jared Goff could have to throw even more than what you've seen the last few weeks, where Detroit, if they can, they're going to be as rushing heavy as possible, but against a team with a really good front seven, you've seen them go out there and use a passing heavy approach. Essentially, whatever's working the best, they're going to lean on, and against the Colts, there's a good chance that is going to be the passing side of it. So whether it's pairing up with a Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta over there at tight end, or even using a Gibbs or Montgomery for some correlation at running back, all of those are well within reason out here for this slate. In terms of a buyback, I'm not going to have one in every single quarterback stack. A lot of times it is a good idea to get both sides of a game, but that needs the game to shoot out, right? This can't be like a 42-14 game to go out there and necessarily need a buyback. But if it ends up being something like 36-24, a little bit more competitive than you have there with that blowout, you might want to include Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., or a Josh Downs over there at wide receiver, as they could get there with some of that buyback exposure. The next stack here, we got Tua Tagovailoa going against the New England Patriots. It's a divisional matchup, also one of the highest totals of the week, 46.5 points out there on most books, which is a little bit higher than what we've been used to seeing out here for these Patriots games, especially early in the year when they had Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. They weren't doing all that much on offense, but with Drake May leading things, they've been a little bit more productive. You've seen a lot higher total games the last 3-4 weeks, and with Tua starting to get his grip after returning from the really serious concussion that he had, I like this spot as well. And last week, I was also a buyer on Tua. Worked out in Jared Goff, not so much with Tua, but I'll still buy the dip as he's way cheaper than where he historically is coming in terms of price. And here at about 6.7% ownership, it's not like he's completely unowned, like a Jared Goff at about 2.7%, but he's not mega chalky like some of the other quarterbacks on the slate. And for reference, I did put some of the other projections for quarterbacks here on the sheet. Of course, guys, this is from my Patreon page. Everything that is blacked out is available over there on the Patreon version. Obviously, a lot more quarterbacks, a lot more plays that I'm getting to. You've also got the other positions covered over there on my Patreon page. But the important thing being here is you can see Geno Smith is 12% and Anthony Richardson, 13% ownership. You got a Jane Daniels at nearly 14%. The 6.7% is higher than some of these super low-owned quarterbacks, but it's about average out here for this kind of slate. So if Tua is going to be about an averagely owned play, I think he brings a lot more upside than that would indicate. As you're in this high total game, they are the favorites against the Patriots. You've got Tyreek Hill to go out there and pair up with. You've got a Jalen Waddle, Devin A-Chain, probably my favorite of all the stacking options out of the backfield, as he's got a 4.5 reception line. It is actually juiced towards the over at that number. So they're obviously expecting quite a bit of work out of the backfield. And just like our first stack, I don't know if I'm forcing in a buyback. I think it's a good idea in most cases, but whether it's a Ramondre Stevenson, Butte, Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas over there at wide receiver, all of those guys you could get to for a little bit of a buyback. So I'd say about half my lineups are going to have a buyback with these first 2 stacks. On the last one, though, it's going to be more of an all-time kind of thing, which, speaking of, this last stack is probably my favorite of the week. So you got to go the whole way down to $4,000 to find Brandon Allen. He is, of course, stepping in for Brock Purdy, who is injured this week, and we're finally going to settle the debate, right? Is Brock Purdy just a system quarterback, or is he actually really good at his job? And I tend to think it's a little bit of both. I think he's a pretty solid quarterback, especially with what he's done on the ground this year. I think it's made him a much better player in 2024. The results maybe haven't shown that so far, but I think you're going to see it going forward. But Brandon Allen, it gets to play with all the targets out there in the 49ers. No Brandon Ayuk, of course, he's still going to be out. They've got CMC, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, that offensive line is a weapon. Jordan Mason is your backup change of pace running back in a relatively high total game against this Packers team. So obviously the odds have started to shift towards the Packers as you had Brock Purdy rolled out. But if anything, that might make the 49ers a little bit more pass heavy tomorrow. So I like that at just $4,000. And it's not always who you're getting at $4,000, who, by the way, if you're going to have all those targets around you, I think you have a good chance to go out there and have a really good day, even against a tough defense like the Packers. It's not just what you're getting there with all those toys around you. It's what it buys you down at $4,000 with all that extra salary to work with. I mean, if you went Brandon Allen, cheap defense, and then one cheap wide receiver, you can essentially play whoever the heck you want to out there with the rest of your lineup. Your 2 stud running backs. You can take 2, maybe even 3 stud wide receivers out there in that kind of lineup. That is really where you're getting a lot of the upside with this kind of stack. So you can see on here I have some of the stacking options. CMC also juiced over his 4.5 reception line, so potentially an option to use for some correlation out of the backfield. Kittle, Samuel, Jennings, as previously mentioned. And then the buybacks, it's really hard to find the right one. I do want a buyback in pretty much every single case, though, as if Brandon Allen's going to go out there and be an optimal play, a lot of that is because the Packers probably put pressure on them to go out there and pass. So whether it's a Jayden Reed, Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs, Romeo Doubs, or even a Christian Watson, I think all of those kind of guys are players that you could look to. So those are my top 3 stacks of the week, lineups, players that I'm looking to get over the field on. And what you can see with these 3 is that they're not the mega chalky pieces. They're not, guys that are 14, 15% owned. A lot more reasonable ownership across the board. High upside games that can also get a little bit different out there in our GPP lineups at the same time. And now for the prop side of things, where we've got 4 props I've already entered. You might want to keep an eye on yourself. So we're going to start over here in Underdog, where I've got this over on Kareem Hunt rushing attempts, where he's over there at 18.5, and he does have a multiplier for the over now. Actually took him on Prize Picks without the multiplier before, but on Prize Picks he was moved to 19. So the only place we can get the same exact projection is over here in Underdog for a slightly lower payout. Luckily for us, I do have a payout boosting prop to pair up with it to get us over a 3x payout. So you get a slightly lower payout because of the Hunt prop, but that'll be made up for with the next prop that we take. What I like here with the Kareem Hunt over is the matchup against this Panthers team, which is dead last in the NFL on pretty much every single rushing metric, rushing touchdowns, rushing yards per game, rushing attempts allowed per game, all up there in at least the top 5 of the league. So you're talking about a very favorable matchup and a game script that is a 10.5 point spread favoring the Chiefs. So they're expected to be controlling the game, playing from way ahead. And what you've seen from the Chiefs use in terms of Kareem Hunt's usage is that he gets well over 20 carries a game when they're playing from ahead. So it's a bounce back spot. They had their first loss of the year. I don't think they're going to mess around at all when it comes to this Panthers team. And in fact, I can see them trying to run up the score a little bit to go out there and prove a point. So Kareem Hunt, I'm expecting to get a bunch of usage out there for the Chiefs. And even with that kind of a multiplier is an over I'll take, with the juice favoring his over on most sports books. And then this other prop we're taking is actually juiced for the under on most sports books. He's in the -135 to -140 range for his under, which is a flip-flop of what we had earlier in the week. When you had a lot of the guys on the Cowboys expected to return, like a Brandon Cooks, they had some defenders that are now going to be out for Sunday. Jane Daniels was juiced like -125 for the over. So that's why you saw Underdog come over here with this 0.89x multiplier. But as the week has gone on, you had Cooks rolled out. A few of those defenders for the Cowboys are not going to be playing. And that spread, which was already favoring the Commander side, is now an even bigger spread than what it was earlier in the week. So now he's juicing that -130 to -140 range under, and you do get a 1.1x multiplier for taking that side. So obviously this should probably be flip-flopped as it was a little bit earlier in the week. But Underdog, the one thing they kind of sleep on when it comes to their props is sometimes the props that they have with these multipliers don't get the same kind of attention as the 50-50 props that they have posted. A 50-50 50-50 prop, anytime you get a bunch of line movement, will oftentimes get that multiplier to go out there and adjust for it. And with these kind of props, it seems like their system doesn't catch on nearly as fast. So that's why this is still on the board. Hopefully it's still available when you guys are watching this, as it is huge plus EV value, as it is favored towards the under now, and you're getting that boosted payout. So if you took these two together, you can see that would pay a 3.06x payout, a little bit over the normal 3x payout here on Underdog. And then on Prize Picks, we do have a 3x combination that I took, which first off has this Christian McCaffrey over on touchdowns. He's minus 135 for the over on sites like FanDuel and Pinnacle. Sites that have the yes and no option even have him at close to minus 140 juice. So obviously he's been an absolute machine at scoring touchdowns. The issue here is that he doesn't have a Brock Purdy. If you saw the fantasy section, I still think that Brandon Allen's going to have a decent go about it. You know, he's going to be a little bit less effective, you'd have to imagine. But with that Shanahan-led offense, I don't think it's going to be a complete night and day difference. I still think that they're going to be efficient, may even get the dub there against the Packers. So with Christian McCaffrey getting some looks down there in the red zone, I'll take him to go out there and score, especially when he is a plus EV value. And then the other prop I took was this over on Jordan Love. It's not so much that there's really correlation between these two. I guess that you could say there is. If Jordan Love were to throw an interception on his side of the field, right, maybe it gives an easy opportunity for CMC to go out there and score. But what I like about this Jordan Love prop is, just like the CMC one, it is heavily juiced towards the over. In fact, on books, he's near minus 130 for the over on most of them. A little bit earlier today, this was actually a goblin towards the over. So the odds, ever since Brock Purdy was rolled out, have started to get a little bit closer to even money, but they're still heavily favored towards the over. I mean, if you take a look at his last 5 games, he's thrown an interception in literally every single one. And now he goes against a 49ers secondary, which is one of the best defenses in all of the NFL. So that being said, it's a relatively close game script between these two teams. I don't think it's like the Packers can go out there and just run the ball the entire time. That's why I like this over out there on 0.5 interception. So it's a 3x payout over there, 3.06 over there on Underdog. For all of my slips I'm taking, all the different thought process behind taking them as well, make sure to check out the Patreon page, link in the description of the video, to catch all of these as soon as they're getting entered into slips. If you want to catch all the value before any potential line movement, that is the place to be for all of that. So make sure to check it out if you guys haven't already, but that's all I've got out there on the prop side of things. That is all for the week 12 main slate. Before you hopping out of here, go ahead and smash that like button for me, and also comment down below who you've got as the top scorer on the slate for a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page. If you give me the top score, you will win a free month access to see all of my DFS projections, all the different prop slips I'm entering over there on the NFL side, all the content for the next 30 or so days. So make sure to check it out. If you guys haven't already, comment that down below, and best luck with all of your exposure out there for tomorrow. Whether it's in GPPs, I hope you guys can take something down with your prop slips. Hopefully you guys end up into the green, and we can make tomorrow one to remember. So looking forward to it. Should be an absolute blast. Best of luck out there, and let's get after it for the main slate.